Imagine you're about to immerse in your favorite piece of Japanese content, like you've got everything ready to go, you're even a little bit hyped, and then you start watching and you realize, wait, I feel like I can't understand this at all today. Nani? I felt like I was doing so well yesterday. But did anything actually change at all, or is it all a mental game? If you've ever felt that way, then you can certainly relate to how I felt while I was learning, even quite recently. The thing with this though, is that with other topics like just not understanding at all, the difference here is that you can still understand the basic sentences, the words that you've read countless times on Anki. However, it just feels way harder to understand the content as a whole, whether it's unsubbed YouTube videos or the last Jujutsu Kaisen manga, and it frustrates you because you can remember back to your immersion a few days ago when it felt so nice just to be in the flow of everything. So I'm going to go over why I believe this happens and what I've noticed from this in my own routine, and then I'll explain how you can get out of this and not feel demotivated by it. Now, in terms of what I've noticed over my own AJAG career, while my subconscious knowledge of the language grows as I learn more words and as I stack up the hours, those days where everything feels, kind of incomprehensible will always still be there. So basically, you just can't avoid them no matter what. Even if I think back to my immersion a few days ago, and some of you can definitely relate to this, I was low-key getting pretty frustrated because I was watching, YouTube videos with no subtitles, doing like pure listening practice, and I literally just could not parse the language at all because it felt too fast just in that moment. But I don't always feel like this, and what made it worse is that I eventually turned on the subtitles and I could understand almost all the content from reading it, but I just felt so fatigued from listening that when I turned the subs off, it just felt like I wasn't even listening to Japanese anymore, you know what I mean? Now, if we try to understand why this happens, I think we need to zoom out and just kind of look at your knowledge of the Japanese language as a whole, more specifically your subconscious knowledge of the language versus your conscious knowledge of the language. So in other words, how much of the language do you know by heart versus how many grammar concepts and words have you consciously memorized and can recognize? So looking at the subconscious knowledge, it's automatic and unconscious. It includes words and phrases and the grammar patterns that you've, internalized through repeated exposure. So all those Anki reps that you've done over the months and the years is exactly what I'm talking about here. Basically, this is when you're watching something and it allows you to kind of just understand and process the language quickly without having to actively think about it. Kind of like how you don't consciously think about grammar when you speak your native language like I'm doing right now, and you just kind of understand it. So even if you barely know any Japanese, if you heard someone say, "Watashi wa Tanaka desu," then you would instantly understand it without having to actually think about it. Even if you're semi-passive listening or not even fully locked into your immersion, I guarantee if you hear someone say any kind of "watashi wa" sentence, then you'll be able to understand it even if you're not fully present. In other words, you understand this kind of phrase any day because you've heard it so many times. Now, on the contrary, your conscious knowledge refers to the rules or the vocab items that you kind of just learned recently or haven't fully mastered yet, which requires you to be completely focused and to be using, all of your attention and effort to recall. So for example, you might have been studying grammar using an Anki deck and came across the structure, "koshita koto wa nai," and you understand that it emphasizes something being really good. Now, let's say the next day you're doing some free flow immersion and you hear, "okane mochi ni naru ni koshita koto wa nai keredo, sore wa totemo muzukashii desho," and it just flies right over your head. That's because it's in your conscious knowledge and you haven't been exposed to it enough for it to become second nature and subconscious knowledge. That's why if you're watching something and you're not like fully locked in, or you're kind of distracted on your phone or something, you're watching Instagram reels, then you're not even getting the full benefit of the immersion. It's called active immersion for a reason, right? Because 100% of your present and your focus should be on the content. Don't be the guy who's just watching Instagram reels while you're supposed to be actively immersing or like switching around tabs on your computer or something. Now, I think no matter who you are watching this video, you'll understand the concept that when you're more mentally focused on something, you can tap into your conscious knowledge and be able to understand more. As since language processing relies heavily on your working memory, it takes a lot of mental effort to decode the gibberish that you're hearing into the actual meaning that the speaker's trying to convey. Now, on these types of days that I'm describing, where no matter how hard you focus and you still feel like you can't get it, one of the best things I found that works for me is to just do some free flow in a little content that's below your level that you've already mastered. So if you think about it, if you were able to have a higher level of understanding during a previous day, then it's definitely going to be possible to replicate it again in the future. So it's definitely a mental game. It's not that you don't have the knowledge of the word or the grammar, because we've already established before that it's in your conscious knowledge. It's just that you're not focused, or you're a little stressed, or you're not present fully. So if you're fatigued mentally or just tired or distracted from your immersion, I always find, for me specifically, feeling, a small win from easier content that I've already mastered just kind of puts me in a good mood. Like I can go from feeling super demotivated to just being like, wait, I was able to understand all this even if I watched it before. Never mind, I'm actually feeling good now. So essentially those small wins are going to be enough to motivate you to keep going and not just quit for the day. So don't underestimate how powerful it can be. if you were able to fully understand something, no matter how basic it felt for your level, how below you it felt, then just feel good about it, because that boost in your confidence and relief, or even just the tiniest stress going away, is going to make you feel like you're making progress, and then that you can go places in your immersion today. Because the worst thing you can do is just kind of feel like it's a waste today and then quit, and then who knows, maybe you just wasted like 2 hours. Maybe you would have watched a piece of content where you would have learned some useful word, or something might have clicked for the day. Now, like I said before, I think this problem is mostly mental. So I mentioned this in several of my past videos, and I know that other YouTubers mention this a lot too. But if you're able to even do like 5 minutes of meditation a day, then you're going to see your focus improve a lot, just in your immersion and also throughout your day in general. Now, let's be real. I know at least 95% of you watching won't take that advice seriously, but it's pretty powerful if you give it a try, because it'll help you focus more and just have better clarity overall. Now, another thing I notice when this happens to me is that if I've already been immersing for a while today, especially for things like reading, I tend to become a little tired and fatigued naturally. It's just normal if you're reading a lot or if you've been immersing today, especially if you're like me, where you go to school and work a job. So it's really easy to become fatigued from just doing life too, or even too much immersion, like I said before. And while you can try to do things like the Pomodoro technique, where you immerse for 25 minutes, take a break for 5 minutes, personally, what works better for me is that I just kind of go until I start to hit that fatigue. Maybe it's after an hour, maybe it's 2 hours, just to the point where you kind of can't understand. And then once I hit that point, I just put in some passive listening, and then I go and I just do some other activity for a bit, completely unrelated to Japanese. Personally, I like to go rock climbing or just go to the gym. And I know a lot of other age-adders like to do the same thing of going to the gym or taking a run and then just having the passive listening going. So to sum up, I've gone over your subconscious knowledge versus conscious knowledge in Japanese, and how being mentally fatigued kind of affects you when you're trying to lock in and make the age-add gains. And then after that, I talked about how immersing in the content a little below your level will kind of help you get back on track and get those small wins. If you're feeling it, a little bit of meditation and just kind of taking breaks between your immersion too. So if you still have this problem and you want to just talk to other age-adders trying to achieve the same thing as you, then consider joining my private Discord server on my Patreon for just $1, where you can access resources and a bunch of other bonus content too. So if you watched this far, then you're clearly interested, so go check out the top link in the description for more. So yeah, with all that said, I hope this content was valuable for you. I know this video was a bit longer than I usually do, so I hope that you can actually take some of these tips to heart and then actually try them in your own immersion. So with all that said, それじゃあまたね.